It is an amazing day to just show up. Hi, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, and changemaker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor, where we talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, end of life, all the messiness in between, long before it arrives, and diffuse the fear so we can live fully now. Most of the time, we did not do that. We did not live our lives proactively. We were reactive. We were not well prepared for the unpredictability of life. We did not accept that change is the only constant. And so we want to do it differently next time, starting now. We want to teach by example. We want to empower ourselves and others and allow our heart, humor, and humanness to lead the way so that we can do it differently. Doesn't that sound wonderful? I think so. We're continuously learning, unlearning, and evolving. And so that is why we are here, to support one another, learn from one another, and just love each other on this journey we call life. So as always, I want to start with a fun fact. I have a fun story. I had the absolute privilege of spending some time yesterday with a grade 2 class. They have, as we all do, they have experienced tremendous grief, loss of pets, parents, grandparents, moving, being bullied, just changes in their lives, anticipated and not anticipated. And, so many times we don't have these conversations with children. They're like the forgotten grievers. Well, first of all, because we ourselves don't know how to have these conversations. I said to them, how do we get good at things? And they said, we practice. And I said, I have a secret. Adults don't talk about grief, and they don't know what to do or say, and they don't practice. And that's why they don't have these conversations with you. They want to protect you. And here's the thing, we need to have these conversations. And they just shared openly. So I tried. Have you ever tried to keep the attention of grade 2 students or children? I think they're like 7 and 8 years old. It's like herding cats. And so I said, okay, so we have big grief and little grief in life. And sometimes the little grief is just, it might be big to somebody else. It might be little to you. Moving. It might be little because you're okay to move. It might be big. A pet dies, it might be little grief to someone because they didn't really care about that pet, and to someone else it's big grief because that was their best friend. And so I said, okay, just in one word, can you share something in the two? Can you share something that might be big grief? Let's talk about big grief first, the elephant in the room, which we also talked about. Asking them to say something in one, I even expanded, say it in 1 or 2 words. That does not work at all. So, okay, share your story so that everyone can share. Share it in 1 or 2 words. Oh, a long time ago when I was, it's like, oh dear, this isn't going to work. Of course, it doesn't really work with adults either. But I said, okay, so thank you for that story. And let's just share in 1 or 2 words so that everybody gets a chance to share. Name one thing that's big grief. Well, a long time ago, and it was just every single story was very long and drawn out, and we just laughed at. There were a few adults in the room, and we had some LOLs because it's like, okay, let's try a different approach. It was so fun, and I was silly, and I realized that experience validated the fact that we need to talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, and end of life throughout life, at home, at school, in our community, with our children, because they were desperate to share and desperate to be heard. So I'm just so grateful for the experience, and I get to go back as well. And so in thinking of that and how the most important thing for adults is to be well prepared, we're going to talk about defining our post today. And I'm actually redefining sort of the way I thought of a post before. So we'll talk about that. But first, of course, I want to take a moment, as my ritual is, to land here, to be fully present, forget about the noise out there and all the other things going on. I'm going to take 2 slow, deep breaths, inhaling through my nose and setting an intention. My intention to learn, to share something that your heart needs to hear. And when I exhale, I intentionally think that I am grounding myself and letting go of everything that does not serve me or you or this time together. So I'm going to close my eyes and take 2 slow, deep breaths. I invite you to do the same, or whatever ritual speaks to you to be fully present somewhere that is important to you, and set your intention. So I'm going to close my eyes, take a slow, deep breath through my nose, set my intention, and exhale, grounding myself and letting go. And one more time, setting an intention, exhaling, and letting go of everything else. When I'm fully present, like everyone else, of course, those thoughts come into my mind, and it's easier because I'm speaking. So when you are just listening, I know we've all been there. We want to hear, and all of a sudden we realize, oh my gosh, I've been daydreaming for like the last minute. I have no idea what happened. Well, that's also the beauty of these things being recorded, isn't it? Okay, so let's get started. And I always tell people we learn, unlearn, and evolve. And my message, I've always shared the 7 takeaways because I believe they are essential principles to live by, to live life to the fullest, learn to grieve and support others, and yes, have the talk about end of life long before it arrives, and diffuse the fear. And of course, that also means any talk. And at the same time, feel like each takeaway has evolved and expanded. And I have aha moments when I share my message with whether it's a huge group, an organization, a school, wherever it may be. I learned something. And when I'm always learning, taking webinars and courses, and I just always love connecting with kindred spirits who know how important these conversations are. And there are more and more of us out there, which is also good news. But yes, so for my takeaway number 6 is find your post. And what that is when I was when the takeaways were coming to me, I realized that there was just something I needed, something more. And I spoke to Minnie Boyce, who was 101 at the time, who I interviewed for my book and became very dear friends with until she died at the age of 105. And when I said to Minnie that we were a death phobic society, we don't talk about grief, we wait till something we feel is traumatic or someone dies, and then we try to navigate. We don't have the coping skills, strategies. And I wanted to be a part of that change. Change takes many voices. I am one voice. And I said, Minnie, we're just like, you've been here over a century. I need a nugget of, just give me something. And it was so funny because at first Minnie's like, well, a lot of pretty boring life or regular life. I don't really have any wisdom to share. And I thought, there's no way. She has something great. And then as we continued to talk, she sat back and she said, we all need a post, something we can turn to or lean on in times of despair. And it was like it just hit me. Oh, there was my nugget, my aha moment. And she said, you're excited about a post? And I said, yes, because what I see is that life is unpredictable, change is the only constant, and we must prepare for anything. And by becoming proactive and building that solid foundation, that foundation of what do we believe about life and death, what coping skills and strategies can help me navigate through this. Have I had conversations? Who is in my village? Do I know how to just show up for myself and others? And am I self-reliant, etc.? All of these other takeaways. And what I realized is because everything is temporary, sometimes we are counting on or totally depending on someone who will help us navigate our grief, whether it's a friend or family member or a pet that, you know, just is our BFF who helps us through all the hard times. And it's always a yes, and it's wonderful to have that compassionate community, that village of people and family, friends, and pets that you can rely on. And also, you need, in my opinion, to navigate this journey, something bigger than yourself, greater than yourself, that helps you to feel connected to something much, much greater than just you or your little circle, and helps you really define life or navigate it with feeling tethered to something that can be there for you anytime, anywhere. Because I say, you know, if you're having a crisis of spirit or you feel like you've had a grief attack, it just feels so overwhelming at 3 a.m. Perhaps your BFF doesn't feel like chatting at 3 a.m. or they're not available, or relationships change, right? Relationships change, people die, elephant in the room, it's true. And also our pets. Our pets are not in our lives forever. And so when I was thinking of, okay, what are these things that we can rely on that can be there for us anytime, anywhere, in good times, and also what we can feel connected to. And so for some people, that is their religion. Others, it is spirituality, meditation, yoga. Some just hear music and they are soothed and they feel connected. And how wonderful music is, something that is easy to turn to anytime, anywhere, especially these days with, you know, you've got your iPad or iPhone and you just have earbuds and you can listen to it almost any time. So how wonderful. For others, it is writing or painting, drawing, whatever it may be. So those are things that you can turn to anytime, anywhere, whether it's prayer or meditation and you're feeling very Zen-like, and expanding on, so say art is your post. You love to express yourself through your art. And even in my book, I have a beautiful picture of a painting that Ken Biggs painted when his wife died. And it was a waterfall over rocks, and it depicted their journey. Sometimes it was like crashing over rocks, and then smooth times, and then crashing, and then the peaceful journey. So it's very beautiful. Now, if you are bedridden, if you are no longer able to paint, I believe that painting or art can still be your post. If you can perhaps be brought to art galleries, or even, thank goodness for computers these days, you can see art on your computer, or you have it all around your home. So in some way, to continue to weave art into your life. So, you know, all over your room, your favorite paintings, a book that someone can share with you of artists and paint. So whatever you can do with that. And the aha moment that I had also is often when I would say, okay, so what is your post? And people say, well, it's my dog. And I would think, okay, you don't quite get it, because your dog is going to live a certain amount of time. And so many people, when I've heard, I don't know what I'm going to do if my dog dies. Well, again, the hard truth is we are all a when, not an if, and our pets, for the most part, we will outlive. So I used to think, well, you're a pet cannot be a post. And then as I expanded, and heard people talking about it, it's like, well, wait a minute. Now, if your dog is your best friend, and if you don't have to like it, but if you can accept, the chances are you will outlive your dog, and that there will be tremendous grief when your dog dies. And you are of the frame of mind that you will find, because you love dogs so much, you will find other ways to love on dogs. Maybe eventually you will have another dog, because, I say, take all the love you feel for that dog and love another dog. There's so many dogs that need love. No, it will not be the same. Will be different. It will not be your dog. It's kind of like the Marley and Me thing, right? They had the perfect dogs and they had Marley. If you haven't seen that movie and you need a good cry, watch it. Or maybe you'll spend time with the neighbors. They all have dogs. Maybe you'll be a dog walker. Perhaps you can go to a shelter and start, just volunteering your time or taking those dogs for walks. So if animals, or say dogs, are something that could be your post, if you can expand to include other dogs or other animals, go to a goat farm or get a cat or whatever it may be. Because when all of our love or our post is attached to one animal or one person, that's where we create excessive suffering, isn't it? When our happiness, and our happiness always has to, obviously we know it comes from within. We are in charge of our own happiness. If we have that wonderful pet and we know that they may not be, they won't, chances are they won't be in our life forever, and there's so many other animals to love. So expanding that. And so that sort of opened me up to, okay, so for some people, and they've said, well, sports, that's where when I'm grieving and I need to get it out, mourn and get that out. I want to go play hockey, or I want to go play soccer. And again, I'm thinking, well, there'll be a time where you can't play. I don't know if that would work. And yet, yes, it does. If you are saying sports, that's my post. I may not be able to play forever. So perhaps I'll go from hockey to try golfing. Or perhaps when I can't play hockey anymore, if I can't play anymore, I will help coach. And perhaps as life moves on, and maybe I have a chronic illness, or even in the dying process, I will bring those sports in by watching games on TV, or having my jersey and my everything all around me, or having my friends that are still playing come and tell me about the games. So if you can find a way to continue to weave that into your life, whatever is so important to you, whatever brings you that joy, makes you feel connect to something bigger, greater than yourself, I think that's wonderful. And again, in the beginning, I didn't see it as something that could be evolving, right? Or whether it's pets or sports, and you have that acceptance that it will not always be like this. Everything changes. Change is the only constant. So life isn't over when you can no longer play hockey. Life isn't over when. And so again, if friends are your post, or socializing, being around people, that's just what feeds your heart and soul. You are an extrovert, and that is what fills your bucket. Unlike myself, who's an extroverted introvert, I love to be out in a crowd and speaking, and then I need to go home and be alone in my garden. Right? So that's what I need. So it's also really important to sit back and define, like, what is actually really meaningful to me now, because that also changes throughout life, doesn't it? It changes, and that's okay. So to sort of revisit and redefine and accept this change. It's like, huh, I am different. I remember someone saying to me, my God, you've changed. And I said, yes, we're supposed to. Everything changes as our life changes, we change. And so again, for me, my post is nature. And in thinking, I used to say, go out in nature. Well, the truth is, as I've just been a part of the 8-week Elizabeth Kubler-Ross education series, which is always so, my goodness, so many people sharing beautiful wisdom and sharing from their souls. We were talking about the nature of grief and nature in and grief, and just explored all those concepts. And I always used to say, you know, I need to go out in nature, and I need to remember that we are nature. Like, we are a part of nature, and even in this room, everything, I mean, began from nature. There's nothing that was flown in from another planet, well, as far as I know. And so we are all nature. We are all connected. I mean, there is no disconnect. Our disconnect is what we create by saying, wow, I'm so alone, as opposed to saying and feeling, wow, I'm so connected, and reaching out. And it's all about reframing, isn't it? So for me, so I say I am nature, and I enjoy spending time in nature in its natural state. So going into the forest, and I mean, everything is just so, everything has a vibration, right? Everything is energy. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. And so when you're out in the forest, no matter what your post, I invite you to incorporate nature some way, somehow, into your world, into your day-to-day, because if you just stand in nature, preferably bare feet, and you can just feel the aliveness. I mean, the energy, you know, the trees are alive, the earth, the animals, everything is so alive. And honestly, I feel like I can just stand there, and it feeds me. It feeds my heart, my soul. I take slow, deep breaths. I take in the fresh air. I use all my senses. I look at all the beauty around me. I listen to the birds and the squirrels and the leaves, like crunching or whatever it may be. And it's just so extraordinary to be a part of. And for me also, I go out in nature, and also my garden. I've created these wonderful, beautiful gardens. I've absolutely no idea what most of the things are. So what I do, I got myself a little app. I can take a picture of a plant, and then I can figure out what it is. That's what I needed. And so when I look out my window, I see flowers and hostas, and that's what I need. And I get into the earth to feel that grounded. And I walk around my yard bare feet. And honestly, what nature also does, besides, I just love the energy, is it reminds me that change is the only constant, that everything is continuously evolving. And here in Canada, of course, we have the extreme seasons, winter, with, 6 feet of snow. And yet magically, as spring arrives, these perennial plants start to grow, and some die, and then there's new little sprigs here and there. And it just, this visual circle of life, even on my walks, when I see there's dead trees and then there's new trees coming up here, it's so extraordinary. And the greatest thing for me that it reminds me is when I am in this place, and I mean, you can just leave your grief in the forest. It can just absorb it all. And it reminds me that how I'm feeling right now, if I am going into the forest or nature, my gardens, and I am grieving, my heart is aching, that how I am feeling in this moment right here and now is also temporary. And I hold on to that. I say, yes, I need to feel these feelings. I am surrounded by love and light. and life. I am being cared for, I'm caring for myself, and this is temporary. And so that is what a post gives you. It gives you something to hold on to, no matter what else is going on in your life, whether it's illness, divorce, diagnosis, job loss, whatever it may be. Those unwelcome changes, right? I mean, change continuously happens, and some are unwelcome. We didn't see it coming. And if we have truly defined what speaks to us, if we have created, reached out, and we have our post, that is a beautiful something we can hold on to and count on, no matter what, and no matter when, and no matter where. Because again, in this beautiful age of technology, again, whether it's sports, art, meditation, you can find any of that online. If you cannot, pictures of gardens, nature sounds, oh my goodness, all of that. So if you cannot, if your post is something that you cannot do the way you loved to engage in it before, find a new way. So find your post and hold on to it. And I would invite you to have these conversations with your family, children. Children can define their post. What is something that helps you to feel really, really connected? And for so many, it's animals. And, to have that, hard conversation. You sure do love your dog, don't you? And I sure hope your dog, Fido or Mimi, whatever your dog's name is here for a very long time. And I know when I had a dog before, I thought I could never love another dog. And now guess what? I love this dog too. And so maybe someday, we'll love another dog or whatever, to have those conversations. Because what's harder than having them is not having them and creating excessive suffering. We can plant seeds along the way. And I'll tell you, spending time with those grade 2 children yesterday really validated this. They are curious. They want to have hard conversations. There was laughter. There were tears. And when their little friends were crying, their other kids, they just instinctively just showed up, arms around their friends, held them. I'm here. It's okay. And so wouldn't it be wonderful to start with ourselves and find our post and continue to have these conversations, or start them and teach our children by example. This is my post. Oh, what's a post? Well, let me tell you about that. It's kind of a neat concept I learned. So let's continue to have these conversations before, during, and always. Before grief, transitions, and end of life, when we are facing it, and when we've been through something. And let's talk about how we could do it, what was good and what we are grateful for, and perhaps what we need to change. So find your post and hold on to it. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being willing to have these conversations. And I would love for you to share what your post is. And if we want to be able to find our post and teach by example, we always have to start with my call to action. Plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thank you so much. You can reach out anytime through my website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. There are many, many resources there. And of course, when you follow, you will receive the takeaways. And I am always open to a wonderful conversation here on this fabulous network, Win-Win Women. And anytime you reach out, I promise I will just show up for you. Namaste, my friends. Bye for now.